very good evening to you, dear listeners. This is Golden Microphone of Australia on Air Live, and for some reason my music's not working as well as I hoped it would. My bad. Alright then, it's been quite a while since the last time we spoke. How are you? Good? Good. On to this week's news stories, which there aren't very many at the moment, as we're all still waiting for some news from Sydney, but rest assured, I know full well that what's coming in the works is something you're all gonna like. If you hadn't already seen on the website, there have been some accommodation breakthroughs. If you want to have a look there, check it out, sydneigh.com.au. Let's see, what else has happened? I've had an interesting couple of weeks, just unfortunately not been able to feel in the mood to really sit down by the fireplace and read you some stories. I do apologize. But we're back now, at the very least for this week, and we're going to continue with our great stories. If you'll all remember, we are up to Chapter 7 of Vinyl and Octavia University Days. Are we putting that link into the chat now? Well, actually not the chat. If you're listening, it's in the social stream, which will be going to Facebook. And if you're listening on YouTube later on, it's down in the description below. Click on it and follow along whenever you're ready. Hopefully that's now. Vinyl and Octavia University Days. Chapter 7. Of all the places she wanted to be on a Sunday night, this was not in the top 10. Stumbling half-drunk down a dark Manhattan street, leaning on Shady Oaks for support. This wasn't even in the top 50. Didn't know you'd be such a lightweight, chuckled Shady, sliding a hoof around the DJ's neck to keep her upright. You were pumping drinks into me, dude. Buck off, replied the grumpy drunk. The two ponies continued their awkward shuffle down the gum-encrusted sidewalk. Slowly, the dark stallion let his hoof drift along Vinyl's back until it came to rest upon her flank. Ever so softly, he began to trace little circles on her coat. What are you doing? The unicorn shoved him away, but stumbled and tripped without the support. He laughed and helped her up. Come on, let's get you home. Where are we going again? Back to my place, like you asked. She frowned. I don't remember asking that. Well, you did, dude. Shady put his hoof around her neck again and pulled her forward a few steps. Whoa there, easy. I don't know what you think's happening, but it ain't happening, she said, trying to sound as serious as possible through the haze that clouded her mind. The stallion paused in his attempts to assist her. Are you serious? Yeah. So, all those bits I blew on drinks were for nothing? Vinyl's drunken brain felt absurdly guilty, and she placed a hoof on his shoulder, though that may have been more for support as much for sympathy. Sorry, Shades. When you said drinking buddy, I thought you meant, like, an actual buddy. The stallion slumped visibly. You're a damn tease, Vinyl. No, I'm not, he snorted. Hanging off me all night, pretty much grinding on me in the dance pit, doing tequila shots off my back? Nah, you're a saint. Did I really do all that? More or less. Crap. I'm sorry. I get a little friendly after a few drinks. Whatever. Reckon you can find your way home from here? She looked around at the tall black buildings and the featureless road. Sure, no worries. Shady shook free of her comforting hoof and started trotting away without another word. Left on her lonesome, the warmth in her veins slowly chilled in the icy night air. As pretty as Manhattan was during the day, it looked downright creepy at night. Sure, there were plenty of street lamps, but they seemed so suffocated and suppressed by the cold blackness that they provided little comfort. Suddenly, crackling tendrils of panic curled around her spine. I've changed my mind. Shady? Vinyl turned to look at the way that her friend had gone, and only saw his tail vanishing around a street corner. Shady! She croaked. A night full of shouting was affecting her voice at the worst possible time. She tried to gallop after him, but only made it a few steps before falling over. The world swam before her. Stop it. I just want to go home. But her head was heavy, and it felt as though the pavement was the only thing stopping her from dropping below the world. It was not a good feeling, but she had endured worse. Granted, those times she hadn't been lying on the road. There comes a time in every drunk's night where they have to accept that they may not make it home. She took some deep breaths to try and force her mind to work. Can't get home on my own. Need help. Some pony who can take care of me. Screwing her eyes shut in concentration, the unicorn hovered her mobile out from its pouch. Calling Octavia. As the ringing began, she let the phone rest on the side of her head, releasing it from her magical grasp. Click. Honestly, Vinyl, this is late even by our standards, yawned the angelic voice on the other end. Sorry. Are you okay? You sound a bit hoarse. Yeah, I'm fine. You? What was she calling about again? Aside from being awoken by this call, I'm quite all right. Yeah, you are. You're always all right. Vinyl grinned, scratching her cheek against the ground. Well, I suppose. Are you sure you're okay? Somehow the DJ could hear Octavia frowning in concern. Hey, I just want to say, 'cause I'll never say it to your face, you're pretty cool. And I reckon we should chill together more because, yeah, you're awesome. A pause. Oh, sweet Celestia, have you been drinking ever since our phone call on Friday? She ignored the words entirely. Nah, just tonight. But listen to me. I'm being totally open and stuff. I've been having these dreams, right? And they're full of those cleft things, like the one on your cutie mark. And sometimes I'll see you in my dreams too, and we'll hang out and go walking together. Final, interrupted the cellist, who sounded more amused than irritated. You should get some sleep. Drunken phone calls are most unbecoming. I can't. I don't know where I am. But shush, this is really important, I think. When I think about you... You don't know where you are? Exclaimed Octavia. What do you mean? Are you just wandering the streets? Yeah, pretty much. That's not safe at all. Do you see anywhere familiar at all? I'll come and get you. That would be awesome. Nothing familiar, but I think the street I'm on is called Blueberry Road. I'm also pretty hungry, so that could just be... Hey, can you bring some blueberries? Hold on, I have a map of Manhattan here somewhere. And some whipped cream. Throw in some chocolate shavings, too. Blueberry Road is adjacent to the main clubbing district. Did you go to any clubs? Vinyl snorted. Philly, please. I went to all the clubs. Oh, of course you did. Well, I think I know roughly where you are. Just stay there until I find you, okay? The cellist sounded so serious that she managed to cut through the nigh delirious fog clouding the white pony's world. Don't worry. I'm not going anywhere fast. As soon as the conversation ended, Octavia shoved her phone in a small, one-sided saddlebag and bolted out of her room into the hall. The lamps were bright and made her eyes hurt, but she persevered regardless. The cellist burst into the stairwell with a crash, leaping over the first set, skidding and bypassing the second via rail slide. Her mane was a mess, her coat was ruffled, and she had forgotten her bow tie, but all of those things took a back seat in her mind. A friend in need. She had read about the responsibilities of friends, and best friends forever. In this situation, she was bound by the rules of friendship to help Vinyl get home safely. It didn't matter if the unicorn had brought this on herself, or if Octavia had 2 lectures later today. Those were the rules, and this mare always followed them. This was, however, the first time she had ever needed to remember that particular set of rules. It was all well and good to know the code of conduct among advanced acquaintances, but if she didn't have any, they weren't much use. Well, not anymore. With determination in her veins, Octavia charged down the hall and through the final door into the night. It was cold. Very cold, but she didn't stop running. Her teeth were chattering, so she clenched them to remain focused. The student village was on campus, hidden away in a far corner. The point was to be close enough to justify living there to get to class easier, yet far enough that students could maintain their own lifestyles without being under the scrutiny of the university's faculty. A long winding path through an unnatural forest led her into the main court. For once, the sheer enormity of the place didn't excite her. Rather, she felt exhausted just by looking at all the ground she had to cover. Thoughts of a carriage crossed her mind, and she latched onto it hungrily. There was no way she could run all the way downtown. Hired transport was the clear solution. Not only would it save her legs, but the driver would know exactly where Blueberry Road was. It was a great disappointment to see the empty ranks outside the university gates. Where usually there would be a couple of carriages eager for your directions and your bits, now there was a single wet newspaper flapping in the breeze. Running all the way downtown it is, then. She took off at a steady trot, wisely deciding to conserve energy. After all, she might need to drag a certain unicorn all the way back. There were a few other ponies out this late, and the ones she saw were promptly avoided. 1,000 tutor-taught parent-approved lessons in safety came rushing back. Don't make eye contact if some pony looks unprincipled. Cross the street to avoid them if possible. Remember, it's better to look rude than to get mugged. And for the love of Celestia, Octavia, don't go into any dark alleys. Thankfully, the club district wasn't exactly hidden away. It was entirely possible to reach it using only main roads, no alleys required. A small comfort in a big, cold city. Yet she was grateful for it nonetheless. It was barely 15 minutes later, and she was panting. Sure, she'd maintained a good exercise regime as required to keep her healthy. That was just a jog around the campus and some stretching routines, nothing that actively increased her endurance. Slowly but surely, her hooves began to get sore from slapping against the tough and occasionally uneven pavement. Final. The pain that shot through each hoof when it struck the ground changed meaning, becoming incentive to pick up that hoof and push it forward. Each inhalation of crisp night air brought with it more energy, and she narrowed her eyes in conviction. The cellist had a goal, and there was simply no time for physical limitations. Rounding a corner, Octavia spotted the very sign that had eluded her. Blueberry Road. Grinning, she forgot all about the ache in her hooves and started down the street with renewed enthusiasm. Oh, no wonder she wasn't certain where she was. This looks like every other street. Black silhouettes came into focus further down the road, and her heart jumped into her throat. Her comfy little dorm was a long way from here. She slowed her pace, keeping an eye on the group. It was 2 colts, probably high school kids who had snuck out. They didn't seem very good-natured, but it was the thing they crowded around that made her heart speed up. A white unicorn with an electric blue mane. Hey! She screamed. What do you think you're doing? They looked up, slightly startled, which was a good sign. It meant that they weren't sure who had the power in this encounter, which in turn meant that Octavia could take that power. Get away from her before I eviscerate you! She picked up the pace, hoping it would frighten them into making a snap decision of fleeing. They backed up, but one of them still had a bit of defiance. Or what? He shouted, voice cracking and betraying his fear. I know Pilates! There won't be anything left for your parents to identify! She'd never shouted so loudly and forcefully in her life, nor had she ever been so confident in a lie. That final threat was enough to tip the tables in her favor, and the 2 colts sprinted away as she reached Final. Pilates. As the cellist carefully looked over the unconscious mare, she felt her panic slowly abate. The DJ was clearly unharmed, aside from a couple of light scrapes, most likely from tripping over. The 2 colts were probably just poking a passed-out drunk, as disgusting little ponies are wont to do. Final's signature purple glasses lay beside her head. Octavia realized with a start that this was the first time she had seen her friend without them. Now, if only she was conscious. Final, wake up. Come on now, you can't sleep here, she whispered insistently, gently poking her white cheeks. She certainly has very soft skin. Finally, a response. Oh, just let me die, groaned the unicorn without even opening her eyes. Absolutely not. I came all the way here from my dorm to get you, so you better darn well get up and be grateful. Her eyes cracked open ever so slightly, but in the dim streetlights Octavia wasn't certain if they were even looking at her. Huh? Octavia? Well, that answered that. Yes, it's me. You called and I came. Now hurry up and move your flank. She couldn't help but be a little annoyed at the slow reaction time. Vinyl reached out with a hoof, patting the ground blindly until she found her shades. Fumbling a bit, she slid them on and raised her head slightly. Hey. The cellist hoped her flat look would be a suitable reply. Right. I'll get up. With several curses, 3 of which Octavia had never even heard of, she hauled herself upright and stood swaying upon the sidewalk. Her mane was even more dishevelled than usual, and her expression was one of hungover agony. Needless to say, the cellist snuffed a laugh. Oh, you look ridiculous. I think if I try to talk too much, I might puke. The Earth Pony took a step back. Can you walk on your own? She asked hopefully. I can try, but if I fall over again, I'm going back to sleep. Pushing through the mental image of being covered in vomit, Octavia walked up beside Vinyl and put a hoof around her neck. Come on then, let's get you out of here. They began the awkward drunk herder shuffle. Never in a million years did the dedicated student think she, of all ponies, would need to do it. Truly it was humbling to see that the lives of other, slightly less reserved ponies were also susceptible to hardships, albeit self-inflicted ones. At least that was what she used to occupy her mind during the long, painful walk through the streets of Manhattan. As streets blurred together and her hooves went numb, Octavia felt her energy drain away. Now that the initial rush was over and Vinyl was safe, the very late hour was beginning to have an adverse effect on her. Or rather, the very early hour, as the lightening horizon suggested. Oh, Celestia, I haven't stayed up all night since... ever, she mumbled, now holding on to Vinyl for support as much as the other way around. You get used to it, came the croaky reply. I certainly hope not. At this pace, I'll never get home in time to get any sleep. Vinyl snorted. Just crash at my place. We're almost there anyway. I'm not sure. Maybe I can just catch a carriage now that it's morning. Octavia, chill. You're staying at my place tonight. Today. Whatever. Well, if you're sure it would be okay. It's fine. Now come on, it's just around the corner. I think my hangover is going to get a lot worse if I don't sleep soon. For once the use of that vague phrase was extremely literal, a fact for which the cellist was infinitely grateful. Vinyl's flat was indeed just around the corner, and up an elevator, and down a corridor. It wasn't the nicest-looking building, nor was it host to the most refined of company, but the Earth Pony held her tongue, knowing that such criticism would bring absolutely no good whatsoever. Inside Vinyl's apartment, she could definitely see why the unicorn wanted to leave. It was extremely small, with everything in one room, except the bathroom, of course, which was somehow even smaller. Cardboard boxes packed tight with belongings took up most of the floor. I don't blame you for not unpacking. I would also hate the idea that I could live here for any length of time. The words slipped out before she could think, and she slapped her hoof to her lips. Luckily, the exhausted mare didn't even seem to hear. She slipped free of Octavia's supporting hoof and stumbled forward, falling onto the bed. Where should I sleep? Asked the cellist, feeling very awkward about the obvious answer. As expected, a white hoof patted the mattress lazily. Can you move over a bit? A twitch that almost looked like a shrug passed over the unicorn's body. She was checking out of reality. Next stop, dreamland. Octavia climbed tentatively onto the bed and tried to maneuver herself so that she didn't accidentally touch the DJ. It was hopeless. There was simply no way to avoid it. Wincing and moving very slowly, she lay down and held her breath as their bellies were pressed together. This is rather nice after being out in the cold. Vinyl was fast asleep, her breathing deep and slow. Every time her chest expanded, it pushed gently against the cellist. Warmth radiated from the blue-maned mare, and Octavia caught herself before she snuggled closer. Must stay alert. It's my first sleepover. I can't afford to make a fool of myself. But as her body realized that the action was finally over and it was time to rest, she found her ability to regulate movements to be severely lacking. So nice and warm. The cellist pressed her face into the white cloud, smiling at the comforting heat. It was safe there, nice and secure, relaxing and cozy. There was no need to think. Her eyes fluttered shut, and she happily slipped into a doze. And as the pair slept, unintentionally entwined but with complaints from neither side, the sun broke through the early clouds and lit the city with its merry glow. And that, dear listeners, was Chapter 7 of Vinyl and Octavia University Days. Once again, if you want to read the rest of the story, it's down in the description below for all of you YouTubers. And for those of you who are listening right now, it's over in the social stream, or it should be for certain. Well now, I do believe we're nearly halfway through the show, and just so that you all know, something interesting happened today. Something very interesting came out on YouTube. It's about, 2 minutes in length. It's a new short, Equestria Girls, a new Rainbow Rocks short. I can't talk today. Gosh. If you'll give me just a second, I will give you the video. Let's see, screen region, blah-dee-da-da-da. There we go then. And there it is. Okay, give us just a moment to get that into place. That should do it. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to go to a quick break. This is the new Rainbow Rocks. Oh, come on. Oh, come on. There we go. That was the new Rainbow Rocks video. I can't remember what's it called. Perfect Day for Fun. A new song from Hasbro Studios. Pretty darn nice, I think. Pretty darn nice. Well, since we're here, let's continue on with our venture into fan fiction with the next story, Of Age. We're up to Chapter 6, so I'm going to go right ahead and pop that into the social stream for all of you listening right now. And for you listening on YouTube later on, again, it's in the description below. Oh, and because I did forget to say it before the break, if you liked the story of Vinyl and Octavia and where it's going thus far, please comment or say yay somewhere, anywhere, even on the Facebook page would be great. If you didn't like it and you'd like another story or something along those lines, say nay or dislike or whatever you don't like. Okie dokie. Fantastic. So, now that that's settled, and people have gotten their chapters up, we're moving on to Of Age, Chapter 6. Fish flopped along the ground, directed by Fluttershy towards their brand new pond. I just don't get it, Applejack said, throwing her shovel to one side. Spike darted around, picking up the discarded shovels as Twilight finished filling the pond with water from the reservoir. Water doesn't just stop flowing for no good reason. No, it doesn't, Twilight replied. But I think that may need to be a mystery we answer as we catch up with Rarity. Which we would have already been doing if some pony would have let us leave sooner, Rainbow Dash said, eyeing Fluttershy as she finished nudging the last fish into the pond. Fluttershy, whose nose was already near the ground, shrunk even lower down. Spike winced, even though inside he agreed with the blue Pegasus. We need Fluttershy with us, Twilight said, and if she wanted to make sure the animals were safe before we left, that's her decision. Spike set the shovels down in a pile by Fluttershy's cottage, trying to hold in grumbles about Fluttershy's priorities. One shovel clattered to the ground as he turned away, but he didn't bother going back to pick it up. They had to get going. Rarity and Sweetie Belle were out there. Couldn't we have just asked some other ponies to take care of this whole pond-digging business? But as Spike imagined that scenario, he realized it would have taken just as long. Now, once you've got the hole dug, you'll need to fill it up gently. No need to rush. Too much water will hurt the earthworms. Spike could just see Fluttershy micromanaging any task that involved animals. Quietly, of course. He shook his head, walking back over to every pony by the new pond. What's done was done. At least now they could get moving. Every pony set? Twilight asked, magically adjusting the straps of her saddlebags. Fluttershy straightened up. Oh, yes. Thank you, Twilight. Whatever it takes to get you to come, Twilight said. Fluttershy nodded, and they both turned and began walking into the forest, with the other ponies following. Couldn't have said it better myself, Spike thought, hefting his bag over his shoulder and walking behind every pony else. He could hear Fluttershy mumbling to herself as they walked. Now you've made a promise. Dragons or no dragons, Rarity needs you. Pinkie Pie bounded alongside the pony lineup as they marched through the first paths of the ever-free forest. Naturally, she was singing. We're coming to save you, Rarity. Don't you fret or fear. We're coming to save you, Rarity, even if you don't really need it and Sweetie Belle is safe and your secret quests are taken care of and those royal guards just got lost or something, we'll still bring you some friendship and hopefully some cheer. The pink pony gasped for air, her chest heaving in and out. Spike passed her, shaking his head. Applejack glanced back over her shoulder at Pinkie Pie. Better keep singing to a minimum there, Pinkie, Applejack said. We don't want to attract any unnecessary attention in these woods. An image of timber wolves flashed through Spike's mind, and he gulped. I hope Sweetie Belle caught up to Rarity. I hope. We'll be fine, Twilight said, as long as we stick together. Spike picked up his pace, barely listening to any more of the ponies' conversations. Sweetie Belle has to be okay. She has to be. And Rarity, she... His small dragon brain couldn't even begin to process what he'd do if Rarity wasn't okay. Air tore through into Rarity's lungs as they surfaced. Sweetie Belle gasped beside her. Rarity grabbed for her sister, throwing a hoof over her to prop her upright on the raft. Her chest burned as she took a second, desperate breath. Stefan turned his head to face them, and the gold-plated raft caught the sunlight as it shifted, making Rarity wince. Oh, they're still coming, the sea serpent said, gazing up at the sky. We haven't lost them yet. We need to get farther from the forest. Rarity, no, I can't. Please don't make us go underwater again, Sweetie Belle pleaded, quivering beneath Rarity's hoof. Stefan? Rarity asked the serpent as he swam them snake-style through the river. Her coat dripped around her hooves, and she was sure the food in her pack was ruined. "I'm sorry," Stefan said, his golden eyebrows creased together. "I'm afraid it's the fastest way I travel, and we need speed to lose those gargoyles." "Gargoyles?" Rarity spun to look at the creatures flying after them. "What about the dragons?" But no. The more she stared, the more she realized the beasts with the leathery wings weren't dragons at all. They were far too thin and far too ugly. They were the same as the creature that had made off with her sister, Apple Bloom and Scootaloo, the night before, except now there were more of them, at least 6 or 7 from Rarity's quick count, all headed their way. Oh my. "Hold on tight again, please," Stefan directed as the gargoyles drew closer. "Rarity!" Sweetie Belle squeaked, scooching even more under Rarity's hoof and hugging her sister's body tight. "Deep breath, Sweetie Belle," Rarity said, sucking in her own. Down they dove. Rarity pinched her eyes shut, once again using her magic to cling extra tight to the raft and to her sister. The river water rushed around them, though this time there were no rocks hurtling past them. It seemed the gargoyles were at least out of boulder-throwing range. Judging by Stefan's swimming rate, Rarity hoped they'd soon be long gone entirely. She could feel her mane flowing behind her in the water, like some pony had grabbed it and wouldn't let go. Same with her tail. She didn't dare open her eyes for fear that sand or river grime would get washed into them as they traveled underwater at Stefan's admittedly impressive super speed. Gargoyles. Gargoyles. Why gargoyles? What is happening? Rarity's brain couldn't begin to think of an answer, perhaps from lack of oxygen. Her chest ached between her wasting lungs and her pounding heart. Adrenaline shook her whole body. All thoughts of gargoyles quickly vanished, and the thought of breathing took over completely. They needed to surface. It was too much. She needed air, and she needed it now. Same with Sweetie Belle. The little filly's grip was loosening. Rarity used her last bit of energy to magically tug on the fin on the right side of Stefan's head, pulling it upwards. He got the message and swam back to the surface. Both her and Sweetie Belle gasped once more, splashing through the top of the river. As soon as she could manage it, Rarity spun to glance behind them. She couldn't even see the forest anymore, much less any gargoyles. She hesitantly allowed herself a moment of security. After all that swimming, she was pretty sure they'd done it. Pretty sure they'd escaped. Sweetie Belle coughed next to her on the raft, and Rarity pushed her sister's mane away from her face, making sure her eyes and nose were clear. "Are you all right, sweetie?" she asked. "Yeah," Sweetie Belle said weakly. "Yeah, I think so." "You're sure?" Rarity asked, fretting over the filly until Sweetie Belle pulled away, swatting her sister's hooves back. Right then." She glanced over her shoulder once again. Still no gargoyles. They were safe, weren't they? "We've lost them," Stefan said. He slowed down his swimming to a more casual pace. "We have," Rarity said, breathing a sigh of relief at his confirmation. Stefan swam onwards, presumably towards a meeting spot for the others of his species. At least Rarity could hope. She'd certainly lost enough time already on her mission. "I just don't understand. Why are gargoyles attacking us?" Sweetie Belle asked, wringing out her mane with her hooves. The water dripped down onto the fancy raft, running off the sides and down Stefan's scales into the river. "The gargoyles have been doing a lot of strange things recently," Stefan said. "Last night a gargoyle wanted to eat us," Sweetie Belle said. Then her eyes flew open. "Do you think we weren't big enough for them all? Maybe they've moved on to hunting sea serpents." Their guide shook his head. "I don't think they were going to try to eat me," Stefan said, "though I'm sure I'd be a delicacy." He put a thoughtful finger to his chin. "Oh, indeed, of course," Rarity said, barely even thinking about what she was agreeing with as her brain turned over the facts. "So now not only are there dragons against the sea serpents, the gargoyles are as well? Or are they just a rogue group doing their own thing?" No, I think they were trying to keep me away from the Everfree Forest, Stefan said. After all, it was just a few weeks ago that they chased me out of there. Rather rudely, too. Gargoyles chased you out of the forest? Rarity asked, making sure she understood him correctly. Yes, and I wish I knew why, Stefan pouted. Wait, so if they chased you out of the forest, Sweetie Belle stared back upriver. Maybe they were trying to take it over or something. What if there's more of them? Rarity! She spun to face her sister. What about Scootaloo and Applebloom? And Spike? Do you think they got out of there okay? Rarity's heart flipped in her chest. Spiky Wikey? It took all of her willpower to keep her facial expression calm and collected. I'm certain they're fine, sweetie, she said as reassuringly as she could. A small whimper managed to escape her mouth, but her sister didn't notice. Stefan watched Rarity carefully and deftly changed the subject. I suppose that's a mystery for another day. We'll be at the sea and on our way to see Serpentia's ceremonial meeting isles soon. Oh dear, the meeting isles already? Well, we'd better prepare ourselves then. Rarity refocused her attention. How are the sea serpents going to welcome an ambassador whose mane looks like something Opal coughed up? She knew exactly what she'd need to do to pass the time between now and when they arrived at their destination. Her horn glowed as she began to tackle both her and Sweetie Belle's ragged coats. She could only hope it'd be enough of a distraction. She desperately needed the vision of an entire horde of gargoyles attacking her Spiky Wikey to disappear back into the far corners of her imagination. Her hooves shook. Rarity narrowed her eyes in an effort to keep them steady. Please, just stop already, overactive imagination. Spike is just fine. He's safe back in Ponyville, where he belongs. Far, far away from any gargoyles. Well, I think we can safely say we've figured out what happened to the river, Rainbow Dash said, flapping her wings to fly up higher. Spike's toes squished unpleasantly through the muck of the flooded forest. Ahead of them, the river spilled around the huge pile of boulders that had dammed the entire thing up. It wasn't like this yesterday, Spike said, scratching his head. I don't get it. Every pony? Spike heard Fluttershy ask meekly. He'd let some pony else answer. He needed to figure out what was going on with the river, and if it would have affected Rarity and Sweetie Belle at all. Twilight walked around the muck, examining the rock pile from every angle with Applejack. This isn't natural, she determined, stopping in her tracks. Ain't natural at all, Applejack agreed, poking at one rock with a hoof. Ahem! Pinkie Pie cleared her throat. From my professional opinion, growing up on a rock farm and all. Pinkie picked up one rock to peer at it closely. These rocks are definitely not from around here. Every pony? Fluttershy asked again. You're right, Pinkie, Twilight said. Spike noticed she wore an expression of mild surprise at Pinkie's reasonable contribution to the conversation, though she hid it well from every pony else. There are no cliffs around, Twilight continued, scanning the area. No mountains anywhere close enough to have caused a rock slide into this very spot. Fluttershy squeaked. Spike hopped up onto one of the larger boulders to escape the mud for a few moments. I mean, I know this is the Everfree Forest and wacky stuff happens here, but random rocks? Just plain weird. Rainbow Dash flew past Spike, circling the rocky dam. Every pony? Fluttershy trotted forward into the middle of them all, her eyes darting about at the trees overhead. Yes, Fluttershy? Twilight finally answered. She flew up to cower behind Rainbow Dash, shrieking, Up in the trees! There are dragons! Dragons? Spike looked up so fast he nearly felt his neck snap. What? No! Impossible! Above, glowing eyes glinted in the dark of the forest. Before any pony else had a chance to scream, they attacked. But as soon as they left the trees, Spike realized they weren't dragons at all. They were gargoyles. Run! Twilight yelled. She didn't need to say it twice. They bolted. There must have been at least 15, no, 20 of the gargoyles at their heels. Applejack did a barrel roll through some thick weeds, dodging one as it swooped towards her. Rainbow Dash and Fluttershy flew so fast their wings became a blur. Spike ran as quickly as he could, but he just couldn't keep up with his friends. A raised tree root tripped him up, and Spike soon found himself sprawled spread eagle in the mud. A massive roar sounded behind him, and he flipped himself over just in time to see a huge set of jaws flying towards his face. Instinct kicked in, and Spike blew out his dragonfire straight into the beast's mouth. It shrieked an awful sound, like a hoof down a chalkboard. Spike threw his hands in front of his face and scooted backwards away from the gargoyle, accidentally smashing straight into a tree. The gargoyle flew away into the canopy, clawing at its mouth. "You again!" He looked up just in time to see another gargoyle, a familiar one, dive bomb him. "Spike, look out!" Twilight screamed. The next thing Spike knew, he was teleported several yards away. He watched as the gargoyle from the attack on the fillies smashed into the ground, where Spike had been moments earlier. It climbed to its feet, breathing raggedly. "That one!" the gargoyle pointed. "Stuff its mouth and eat it quick!" Spike froze in place. "Oh, I don't think so!" Rainbow Dash zoomed to a halt and spun around to face the creature. Then she flew straight at its face and punched it in one of its glowing eyes. "Yee-haw! That'll teach 'em!" Applejack cheered, rearing up on her hind legs. "Come on, girls! We ain't gonna outrun 'em, so we'll just have to outgun 'em!" She darted forward to join Rainbow Dash, bucking at the gargoyles aside like they were some sort of bizarre winged apples. But as valiant as his friends were, Spike knew they were outnumbered, and he didn't have enough dragon fire to beat all of them. He was just too small. Again. "Get the little scaly one!" another gargoyle yelled, flying at him after he used his dragonfire to scare one of the beasts away from Fluttershy. "Spike, get out of here!" Twilight yelled, right before teleporting him even farther from the battle. "Hey, you said ponies would be easy food!" One of the gargoyles hissed at another as Pinkie Pie popped in and out from around the trees so quick that Spike was sure Twilight had to be teleporting her too. "They will be," the other responded. Spike's eyes flew open as one of the gargoyles heaved a rock straight towards Twilight. "Watch out!" Spike screamed, tearing towards the unicorn. But then a massive blast of fire burst straight past the gargoyle with the rock, and with it a roar of epic proportions. What was that? Spike knocked Twilight to the ground, which turned out to be entirely unnecessary because the gargoyles had already scattered. "Dragon!" they screamed. "Dragon! Fly away! Just you wait! Wait till we're ready, then you'll be sorry!" The gargoyles shouted as they flew through the forest branches, leaving their prey back in the mud. The forest went eerily silent. Pinkie Pie broke the silence. "Dragon? Where? Where?" She hopped around, nosing behind the trees in search. "Dragon?" Fluttershy squeaked, but Rainbow Dash grabbed her tail before she could fly away. "It's not a real dragon," the blue Pegasus said. Her eyes narrowed. "All right, kid, come out wherever you are." She scanned the ground around where she flew, and Spike climbed to his feet to look around too. "What's going on?" "I know you're there," Rainbow Dash said, putting one hoof on her hip. "I taught you that roar." "Oh, come on," a voice said from the thick of the forest. "She caught us," "She caught us, Apple Bloom. There isn't much else we can do," a second voice said. "Apple Bloom?" Applejack trotted forward. "Is that you out here and there?" Spike shuddered. Applejack's stern and disappointed voice could give Princess Celestia's "You're in trouble" voice a run for its money. "Dang it, Scootaloo, couldn't you have disguised your roar some more?" Apple Bloom and Scootaloo walked out of the woods, lugging with them their wagon. In it sat a number of items, including a burnt torch and a huge empty jar. "What are you two doing here?" Applejack demanded. "Yeah, how dare you save us?" Pinkie Pie leapt over by Applejack's side. That ain't exactly what I meant." Spike groaned. Of course Apple Bloom and Scootaloo had followed them. He was pretty sure he saw Applejack's lasso in their cart, mixed in with some other supplies. Why Applejack had thought a bit of rope was going to stop these fillies, Spike had no idea. "Girls, Following us was a very dangerous idea, Fluttershy said, flying down and gently landing by their sides. You could have been hurt, or worse. The pair of fillies finally had the good graces to look ashamed. Just how did you make that much fire anyway? Rainbow Dash asked, flying over to poke at their cart of stuff. Pinky was already digging through the whole lot. Rainbow Dash, Twilight chastised. Now's not the time. What? It was kind of awesome, Rainbow Dash said. Scootaloo beamed for a moment, then shook her head, as if clearing it. You all don't get to talk. You were going to just leave us behind when our friend was in trouble, Scootaloo said, glaring up at all the ponies, including Rainbow Dash. You can't blame us for wanting to help. Yeah, and without us, you'd all be gargoyled dinner, Applebloom added, holding her head high. They did have a point there, Spike had to admit, and it seemed the others were drawing that same conclusion too. Well, thank you for saving us, Applejack said grudgingly. I don't think you're going to get away with this misbehavior, she warned. The fillies smiled at each other, victorious. So we get to come along now, right? Scootaloo asked. Well, we did let Spike come, didn't we? Rainbow Dash reasoned. Why not these kiddos too? What? Hey now, don't lump them in with me. Don't lump me in with them, Spike protested. Rainbow Dash gave him a playful punch in the shoulder. Right, I suppose they did make a scarier dragon than you did. How did you do that trick with the fire anyway? She turned back to the fillies. Spike's cheeks burned. He could barely even hear the pair of fillies as they described the kerosene solution they'd swiped from Sweet Apple Acres. 2 fillies made a scarier dragon than me, and somehow I still think I can protect Rarity? Puh, yeah, right. His shoulders slumped, and he walked away as the ponies continued to chatter among themselves. Why am I even bothering to come along? I can't do anything useful. Spike kicked at a broken branch, sending it flying into a puddle from the flooding forest. Rarity doesn't need me. She never has. I've probably just been annoying her all these years. Now I'm going to show up, interrupting her special mission with my uselessness. Tears welled up in his eyes, and Spike swiped at them with one arm. The other still shouldered his pack, which was now soaked with mud water. Gargoyles are afraid of dragons, but they're not afraid of me. Guess I wouldn't be afraid of me either. I'm kind of pathetic. I'm a dragon that won't grow big. That'll probably never grow big. All because I can't be myself when I'm that way. Spike leaned against the tree. Apparently myself is pretty lame. Hey there. Spike glanced over his shoulder. Oh, hi, Twilight. The purple unicorn walked up to him, putting a gentle hoof on his shoulder. Don't listen to Rainbow Dash. You know how she jokes. Spike looked away from the mare out into the forest and sniffed loudly to keep his tears back. Yeah, jokes. Hey, Twilight said again. Hey, I know you. You're much more than meets the eye, Spike. Puh, yeah, right, Spike said. I can't even protect my friends. I'm supposed to be a dragon, Twilight. A dragon! You saw how scared those gargoyles got when they thought a real dragon had shown up? When a real dragon showed up, Spike? I think they were already plenty scared of this real dragon, Twilight prodded him. You totally took down one of those things with just one fire blast. Did you notice how they singled you out after that? You were the primary threat to them. Maybe not as much as a fully grown dragon, but still. They didn't give a hoof about the rest of us. He thought about that for a moment, replaying the events in his head. He wasn't quite sure the gargoyles had been quite as focused on him as Twilight made it out to be, but it still perked up his wounded pride a smidgen. Spike looked up at her. So you really think there's more to me than meets the eye? He asked. I don't just think. I know, Twilight said. And come on, when am I ever wrong about anything? Before Spike could respond, she shrugged sheepishly. Wait, don't answer that. They both laughed. Spike began to feel better in spite of himself. Now let's get back to the group, Twilight said. We have some missing friends to find. Spike straightened up. Right. The ocean sparkled like one giant gorgeous sapphire. Rarity had never seen anything so beautiful in her entire life.
"Oh, Stefan, your kingdom is simply lovely!"
she cooed from the sea serpent's back. Sweetie Belle propped her front two hooves up on the fancy shimmery raft, her little filly eyes wide.
"I never knew there could be so much water in one place!"
Sweetie Belle exclaimed. Stefan beamed back at them.
"Just wait until you see our ceremonial meeting isles!"
Rarity's imagination began to run wild, envisioning a lush, tropical locale with white sand beaches, palm trees, drinks served in coconuts.
"Do you guys wear war paint there and stomp about and set things on fire?"
Sweetie Belle asked, hopping over to look Stefan eagerly in the eye. Rarity was once again painfully reminded of how differently she and her sister thought.
"Sweetie Belle, don't be rude."
"What?" Sweetie Belle asked, blinking innocently.
"What'd I say?"
Stefan was laughing.
"Oh, most generous Rarity, your sister is simply adorable!"
He mussed up her mane again with one of his skinny little fists. Rarity sighed and went back to magically fixing Sweetie Belle's hair.
"I'm so glad you decided to bring her along."
Decided to. Right. At least in that moment, Sweetie Belle's mind seemed to be thinking exactly what Rarity's was, because the filly gave her sister a sheepish grin.
"Well, darling, let's carry on then,"
Rarity said to Stefan, gesturing out at the ocean.
"I'd love to see these isles of yours." "Of course," Stefan said. "Of course, of course! I'm sure everyone there is anxiously awaiting our arrival. I've told them all about you. I know they'll love you."
Goodness, I hope so, Rarity thought to herself, looking out across the water. Otherwise this is going to be a ridiculously perilous trip for negotiations that might not even take place. They travelled on for another couple of hours. Rarity wrung out the rest of the river water from the blanket she'd carried in her back, and then magically hovered it over her and Sweetie Belle for sun protection. "You need to be mindful of your coat in the sun, dear," she said, passing on what she considered to be some important sisterly sage advice.
"Apple Bloom says sun's good for a pony,"
Sweetie Belle protested. "Well, it is if you want to live the rest of your life with wrinkles," Rarity huffed. "Have you seen Granny Smith?" Sweetie Belle sat down under the blanket. "Good point."
"Almost there now,"
Stefan said after a while more had passed.
"Look, you can see the isles in the distance."
Their blanket dropped to the raft. As Rarity glanced up, both her and her sister dashed forward to look out. Rarity's jaw dropped open when she caught sight of what Stefan was pointing at.
"Oh my,"
she said in a whisper. Ahead of them weren't the sandy islands of paradise Rarity had been envisioning after all. Instead, craggy rocks jutted out of the water, forming a massive circle around a much bigger central craggy rock, nearly the size of Ponyville. Giant waves crashed repeatedly into the isles, spraying water in every direction imaginable. Each rock was naturally dark in color, but most of the surfaces had been form-fitted with golden plates, making the entire thing reflect the sun so that it was almost painful to look at. Sweetie Belle shielded her eyes next to Rarity.
"Wow,"
the filly said, peering closer.
"look at them all."
She wasn't talking about the rocks or the waves. Rarity was certain Sweetie Belle was talking about the sea serpents that swam around the rocks and in the waves. Dozens of them, each in different colors and sizes. Rarity winced each time a wave crashed into the ragged isles, fearing that a serpent would get smashed up against the rock, but they all seemed to know what they were doing. Such a flamboyant species, they were certainly formidable enough when in their natural habitat. And how exactly am I supposed to convince them and the dragons to stop fighting?
"Marvelous, isn't it?"
Stefan asked, his eyes misting up.
"It's great coming home. Now, are you ready to meet my kin?"
Rarity swallowed. Ready or not, they were here. She squared her shoulders. Yes. Yes, I am. And that, dear listeners, was Chapter 6 of Age. If you liked it and you want to hear more, say yay in the comments in YouTube or yay in the chat that's going at this live section at the moment. If you don't like what's happening, say nay in the comments and in the chat. That seems to have drained a lot of what I'm able to do. I've got a sore throat now. So, in conclusion, in a very, very short conclusion, I would like to say goodbye, good night. Hope you all had a good time. I know I did. And we will end this with, well, I believe this should be our new ending song, at the very least, for now. Until next time, hopefully next Friday, I've been Golden Microphone. These have been FanFiction Fridays. You've been listening to Australia on Air. Good night, everyone.
I'll be the toast of the town, the girl on the go, and the type of pony every pony should know. I'll be the one to watch the girl in the flow, and the type of pony every pony should know. Passion, smelling, becoming as red fire as popular can yet be. Making my mark like spread marching, and at the side I skip. I'm the belle of the ball. It's worth the color and show. Always gotta keep in mind my pony. Racing pony, every pony should know.
Of the royal, you will meet their rarity. You will see I'm just as regal at the gala. I will find him, my Prince Charming, and I'll guarantee will be. He will treat me like a lady.
Passion. Smelling. Pony, every pony should know. Smelling. Becoming as red fire as popular can gather. Making my knee and stick moving, cutting up the sides I skip. And I'm the belle of the ball. It's worth a cut the show. Always gotta keep in mind my pony. Racing pony, smell the details. Every word that I speak, my approving glance is what they all see. I'm the creme de la creme, not just another Jane Doe. I'm the type of pony every pony should know. Little critters hibernate under the snow and ice. And even though I love my boots, this fashion's getting old. We help them gather up their food, fix their homes below. And even though I love my boots, this fashion's getting old.
Of the royal, you will meet their rarity. You will see I'm just as regal at the gala. I will find him, my Prince Charming, and I'll guarantee will be. He will treat me like a lady.
At home at the opera on a fancy yacht, becoming the top of all the pantry lot. I'm the creme de la creme, not just another Jane Doe. Yeah, I'm the type of pony, every pony Fashion. Fashion.